Sliding into your screen is not just any coffee bag. It's a Roastar coffee bag. Don't need thousands. Personalized just 25 in Roastar's Design Lab. No design experience needed. Choose a pattern, add your logo and text, or create something memorable with AI. Being made in the Midwest, you can expect it on your doorstep in no time. Now that was smooth.
To the show, and whenever you're ready, I'll get started.
Awesome. I'm ready.
Great. Then I'll say, hey, everyone. Welcome to the Coffee People podcast presented by Roastar Coffee Packaging. A big thanks to them for supporting not only this show, but businesses of all sizes. I'm your host, Ryan Woldt. Welcome, and thank you for being here today. It's the first episode of season 15. You can find the Coffee People podcast on any of the major platforms and YouTube. Subscribe to our recently revamped newsletter at coffeepeoplepodcast.com. We're here virtually today with the founder of Paul John Caffeine Coffee, Shonali Paul. Check out pauljohncaffeine.com while you're listening today. Shonali, welcome to Coffee People.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to dive into it.
I'm excited you're here for this first episode. I'm on the road, traveling a little bit, so this is a little bit chaotic, but it's kind of a
15 season. That's incredible.
It's kind of exciting. It's when I said it out loud there, I kind of had this is cool. Like we've been doing this for a while, and I want to kind of use that as a prompt to go back in time and kind of find out. I did a little bit of research on you and your family and some of the things you have, but I'm wondering if you have some memories of coffee or a first coffee experience that stands out that might have been the seed to set you down the path you're on now, which we'll get to in a minute.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so I'm from the south of India, and so that's a region where we actually do drink coffee more than we drink tea. Culturally. And so coffee kind of started really early on in my life. And so one of those first experiences, I can't necessarily remember the first time I had coffee, but I very much remember the feeling and nostalgic feeling around coffee that very much stemmed from my childhood and like visiting family back in India and the experience behind the coffee, and that's always been, I guess, the budding experience or memory that kind of started this whole journey for me.
You mentioned that you're from a region of India where coffee is more common, maybe than the outside perception would be. When you say more common, do you mean majority? Do you mean? Or is it just that it's available more than it might be somewhere else?
So we have a coffee growing region in India, and that's like on the Western Ghats, which is a mountainous region in the south. And so there are certain states which are predominantly in the south, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, which are 3 states all in that belt. And most of India's coffee is grown there. And specifically Karnataka, the state of Karnataka, where I grew up in. So that being where most of coffee is grown in India, the people drink that predominantly. Not to say that in chai is not consumed, it is, but the majority, I think, do drink coffee more so in the South than they do tea, like we see or know of in the rest of the world.
For anyone listening or watching, I'm going to have a map on our newsletter that people can find and kind of refer to as we go. You mentioned kind of that region of coffee growing in India, where you grew up.
Yeah.
I believe you source coffee primarily from that area too. Correct. And for your company, Paul John. is it just to stay connected to that world? Is it, what was the motivation? Did you find that coffee to be the thing that you felt best represented what you were trying to do, or what's the motivation
Yeah.
there?
So just like a little bit of a backstory, I guess, more so on how I kind of got into the
Yeah.
business. So my grandfather had some estates in Coorg, which is a region on that coffee growing belt. Majority of coffee grows from there. And so he had some estates way back when he was starting his businesses and things like that. He moved from Kerala to Coorg and started this. And so he had some estates, and it's always been in the family. They still continue to be in the family. In fact, one of the many estates that he had is currently one of our resorts. And so we have a coffee experience center. We have the coffee, part of the estate still there,
Mhm.
and so guests are able to fully experience the coffee world and like how it's grown and an estate, and so that connection to the estate and the coffee growing region definitely sparked the interest, and that's where you get most of your coffee. And so we're able to source our beans from that whole region. It's a small world. Everyone knows everyone. Estate owners are, it's generational. It's passed down from father to son to daughters to, it's been multi-generational. And so having that full tie of my grandfather being there and like my dad growing up there and then me growing up there, we have a bunch of friends whose fathers were estate growers and things like that. So those personal connections help you identify source. You're able to highlight various regions or coffee varieties, and India has a coffee board. And so that coffee board highly regulated coffee in the past. In the recent years, they have made that less strenuous, but you still need a coffee board license to export coffee from India. And so it's not as easy and simple without having those connections and just people that and my grandfather really laying down that foundation to help me be able to very smoothly source coffee from India.
Sure. You mentioned both your father and your grandfather and family connections.
Yeah.
I know they have a business background. We're not here to talk about them, but what made you think, I want to follow down into that world? I want to start a business of my own, or I want to be part of one.
Yeah.
Believe you went and got your MBA
Yes.
as well. I mean, what made you think this is something that I'm motivated by or inspires me to do it? What was your origin in that way?
um, I truly believe that in India, entrepreneurship is so you see it so commonly. Not just my parents, I mean, my grandfather and father and, family, but just in general, that entrepreneurial spirit is very much there, present in India. And it never really crossed my mind to go work for a company, to be very honest. It was always the plan to start something, to build something from scratch. And I think I was blessed enough to never have to worry about that and to always have that as a thought, that I would just start my own business. But I truly believe that I've seen, my grandfather, my uncles, my aunts, my mom, dad, everybody kind of start something, and do something on their own, that I've been able to kind of learn from their experiences and kind of always have that thought process growing up. And so I kind of did what I needed to do to best prepare myself for that
Sure.
plan, I guess.
Um, your website, which I mentioned here at the top, I'll say it again, pauljohncaffeine.com. One
Yeah.
of the comments on it is that you're a woman in minority-owned business,
Yep.
minority-owned in the United States.
Yes.
But you do business, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but here, but also around the world or in India, not just focused on one market.
Yes. So actually, we started off, the whole company started with the concept of trying to bring Indian coffee to the Western world.
Hmm.
I've studied, like you mentioned, I did my MBA, but I did it in Switzerland. I did my undergrad here, UMass Amherst. And so every time I traveled and like moved away from home, I would actually bring like my South Indian filter and the coffee and brew it with, with the filter. And so I never found quality coffee here in the US, and that's why I kind of started the company. And so we started it here in the US with that intention of bringing quality specialty grade coffee to the US and kind of highlighting the Indian origin. And so recently, though, we've gone back to India and we've started operations in India as well. And like I had mentioned, we have a hotel in Coorg, which is one of my grandfather's previous estates when he was alive. And so we have a whole coffee experience center, and that's where our roastery is set up. And that's where we kind of have our base of operations for India. And so it gives you a full rounded, experience if you were to go there and kind of see how the whole thing works and from start to finish.
So I hate that this is like the day that we're talking, but just yesterday, the United States put a big tariff on products from India.
Yep.
Kind of just swept up everything,
Yep.
thing, and took 50%. It's a huge thing.
It is.
I can't expect that you have I know you've probably been planning for these sorts of things as the world has been a little bit unstable recently.
Yes.
In the business world in particular. How how do you handle the emotion of seeing the news actually come to fruition?
Yeah.
And do you have an idea of how this is going to impact your business, here or elsewhere? Or this is a bigger question than it probably should be, but as you're looking forward.
Yeah. So yeah, this year has been very what's the word? It's been very unsure. We're not totally sure about like how many things would have been. The tariff, specifically the 50% tariff that is, in effect from now on, is that my personal opinion is that it will come down. Or I'm very optimally hoping for it. But like you said, we do prepare for these things. India has like a once a year picking season. And so the last year I had brought in a large amount of coffee. We have a large volume stored in Miami already from the last year. We take that gamble of buying a large quantity and keeping it, one, in the hope that your business does well and you just have to bring in more coffee, and two, in the hope that when the fluctuation in prices and things like that happen, you're able to kind of give yourself time to think about it. And I think especially in today's business world, that jump scare of like suddenly just buying something and bringing it over just in a rush because you don't have product is kind of where I think businesses kind of have to think preemptively, bring in a larger quantity, take that risk, just to kind of give yourself time to fully think about what the next step is, or even give time for this to change. Because we have seen in the past that these tariffs are not necessarily set in stone. They keep changing, they keep fluctuating. There's a good chance it goes up, but there's also a good chance that it goes down. And coffee is something specifically that I hope the National Coffee Association and those kind of associations lobby and kind of have our voices heard, because America doesn't produce coffee besides Hawaii. And we are a large consuming country of coffee, and so we have to get the coffee. And for a product that we can't produce here, it's not possible. It's just not possible. So I'm hoping that those are things that change, that stands, and something is done, because Brazil has 50% tariff as well, and that really has changed that coffee price drastically, because they produce the most amount of coffee in the world, and so any little change to Brazil's price changes everybody else's price.
Sure. They're dragging their weight, pulling people along.
Correct.
Their logistics affect everyone's.
Correct. Yeah. And so, so we're really hoping. I'm personally hoping that we have some time because India's picking season is December, January, February, and so by the time we actually get new crop of coffee, it's really April, May that kind of really lands here. So I am optimistic in that sense that I've preemptively brought in a large amount of coffee from last year. That the once a year that we bring in coffee. And that's kind of how I've prepared for it. And I think that that's how most coffee companies would have done, is kind of have a stockpile of coffee if they could, the best that they can with the situation.
It definitely, if you have the ability, it gives you a little bit of a hedge.
Correct.
And
yes.
It's, smaller. If you're smaller or you're a boutique, you may not
it's
have
harder,
that.
For
and
sure.
that's where it's going to, depress some of that market. In that industry.
And that's another stance that I've had since we actually import coffee ourselves, the green coffee. We source it from estate owners and we import it ourselves. We do sell the green coffee also because our goal is to kind of highlight India as an origin, not just as us as roasters. So, even in terms of our prices, I've kind of had the stance of, okay, I buy it once a year. This is what my price is. I'm not fluctuating it just because I know I can command a higher price. This is what it is. And that's kind of what I've done with my customers too, is that, I'm going to extend that same pricing stability to you because I have it. And when the time does come that I have to increase it, I hope you understand that, I'm doing it because I have to and not because of anything else.
Building foundational loyalty.
Correct.
That's kind of that goal.
Yeah.
I want to talk and get a better understanding of Paul John in the United States. Who are your customers? Where are people finding and trying and drinking Indian coffee?
Yeah. So I think it's very, very early on. Again, the Indian coffee aspect is something that I spend a lot of time trying to educate, in a sense of like trying to explain what it is, explain what it means. I can't tell you how many times I have had to explain that it's not something that is added. It's not like we add masala to the chai or the coffee that makes it Indian coffee, but rather it's the origin of where the coffee is grown.
I mean, we could try though, right?
Yeah, you could definitely make a latte that has certain things, and we do actually have a blend that blends chicory with coffee.
Okay.
But the concept of trying to explain to them that it's not like we've added spices to it, and so I think that our customers would be someone interested in trying various different origins, trying specialty coffee from different regions with various flavor profiles, and kind of just, exploring. And I think more coffee enthusiasts is our target market because they're willing to try something new and different, and kind of give us a chance.
So there's an education process that people recognize India as an origin as opposed to more traditional flavors they might see on their shelf. Is there, obviously regionally, and because of the terra firma below it, there's going to be uniqueness to Indian coffee. What is it about Indian coffee that speaks to you or that you try to convey to people, hey, this is why you should give this a chance?
I think Indian coffee is so unique because of the fact that it's shade grown. It's something that was grown, the plantations, if you see it, it's just absolutely incredible. It's like up in the mountains, fully canopied over by silver oak trees. And every estate is small estate holdings. Majority of estates in India are small estate holdings. And which means that, they take a lot of pride, care, and effort into maintaining that estate because that's their livelihood. And so ecologically, they fully maintain. Sorry, I'm trying to find the words, but they are able to grow coffee in the most natural sense. And I don't know how better to explain that unless you see like an image. And we have some images of estates, but it's very different from Brazil and Colombia, where it's more like an agricultural concept where they have rows and rows of coffee plants. It's all picked by machines. It's very, very industrial. Whereas in India, it's handpicked. You have pickers they have a gunny sack bag on their back. They go out in the morning. They have to hand pick out these cherries that are ripe, which allows for them to be picking the ripe cherries and not the unripe ones, letting the unripe ones stay on the plant longer. So they do a couple rounds of picking. So you're getting the best quality from that plant. And so it's very unique. They even grow other plants in the estate. So, you'll have oranges, avocados, papayas, pepper, cardamom, all grown within the same estate, because they have to maximize that square footage, right? And so
Sure.
so that infused in the soil, it's all very, I think it's very unique, and you can really highlight those different flavor profiles in a coffee, depending on, of course, the processing and the roast times. But yeah, I think it's very unique and highly diversified. So you're able to really play around with just one region. You're able to get so many different flavor profiles from that.
Sure. And I'd point out just something I have learned in the past, but shade grown coffee, also traditionally a bird friendly coffee, which is always kind of a good thing.
Yeah, not just
personal to me.
birds. Not just birds. When you tear down the trees and the plants, the natural foliage of the area, the elephants, the bison, all of those animals that are so used to the nature, they get fully confused as to where they're going when they don't see a marking or they don't see, what they're used to seeing. And so that's another thing that a lot of the estate owners are very aware of and understand, that they are the tenants of the land and not the owners of the land. And they try very hard to make sure that they keep it as untouched while still making their livelihood, but not, fully controlling the environment to the point that you're causing harm to, the natural inhabitants of it.
I love that. Working in harmony with the land instead of against it. You're not, it's also a longer term thinking as opposed to stripping the land and then having to move on or provide a lesser product.
Correct.
Every year.
Yeah. And it's very sustainable that way. They're able to pass the same estate down from generation to generation that way, and practices that their grandparents have told them, and, it's still working today. So
this show, as I mentioned at the top, is presented by Roastar Coffee Packaging. They've been incredibly supportive of the show and our efforts to share stories. Am I mistaken in thinking your packages are from Roastar? Okay, I thought so. But I didn't want to. I didn't want to say it without, and then it not be right. They've also asked me to ask people like you if you have advice for burgeoning entrepreneurs. They were once a small company. They've been growing, helping other companies grow as well. Lots of small businesses are family businesses. So if a young family came to you, or a husband and wife, or whatever it was, said, we want to start a business together, what advice would you offer them?
Yeah. When you say start a business together, you mean with themselves, just start something?
Yeah, a small, it doesn't have to be, they don't necessarily have to start it. I guess I would say as like a partnership, but just a small business. Like, we're going to step away from the corporate world or our other job.
Yeah.
Give it a go to do it on our own. I think maybe that's more the value there. It's like, I'm going to go try it on my own. What would you say? Because you've been through it, you're in it, but you've been through that first wave of it.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that the best advice I could give somebody is kind of get as much knowledge as you can from other entrepreneurs like this, and learning. I had Mike Ebert, who, helped me kind of formulate a lot of things, companies like Roastar that really helped. So those are little tidbits that you kind of learn. And I think that the advice would be to kind of gain as much information as you can before you really start. You're never going to know everything. But kind of having some arsenal in your backpack definitely helps you look in the right direction. And I think that focusing on the product is very important. I think focus on the quality of the product, and the rest kind of follow. When you're proud of your product, you'll be able to talk about it better. You'll be able to market it better. And you won't have to worry about things like returning customers. It's more acquiring new customers, and that's something that can be done. And so long as your product is good and you can stand by your product, I think that will change your perspective of your business as well. You're more proud of it. You're more confident in shooting your shot when you're proud of your product. So I think that's also a really important aspect, is just being pretty proud of what you are offering.
Sorry, I'm laughing a little bit just because of my own imposter syndrome anxiety. And so like to say that I've done 15 seasons of this show is kind of like, I do have this experience. I should kind of know what I'm doing now. We'll get there eventually. Your packaging from Roastar, I'm wondering, how do you decide what to share, what to tell? How does it tell the story of what you do in a way that, and I think this is a real challenge because I always want to include all the information about everything. But how do you do it in a way that is like appealing to the customer but not overwhelming?
Yeah. Well, one thing why I really like Roastar is that they have really low MOQs, which because when you're starting a business and you're starting that packaging, your packaging evolves so many times. Like the number of iterations, and it's small iterations. It's like a full stop at the end of a paragraph or a line spacing that you want to change. And having those low MOQs really has allowed me to specifically keep kind of adding on and taking off what I thought was important or what has done well and what hasn't done well. And I think that you kind of learn that fine line of too much information and not enough information when you kind of make those iterations in real time almost. But I do think that I like to make things as clear, like when it comes to coffee. Sometimes we overwhelm it with so many notes and so many so much information, the altitude and the things like that. It's like, it is really nice to know those things if you wanted to know those things. So, if you were able to go look it up on the website, but when you're trying to make a quick preemptive decision and you get too much information, it's kind of almost like nerve-wracking and you're like, okay, never mind. I don't want to do this, And I think that the flavor forward perspective is how you should tackle packaging, is kind of focusing on the flavor that the coffee is providing, because that's what people are going to, at the end of the day, taste the cup of coffee and then associate to that specific blend. Sure. And then the rest of it kind of calling out, things like women owned and shade grown, those kind of things people love to know and see if it's there, right? And so fine line between too much information and not enough information, I guess.
I love your current bags have a very distinctive look. The shades of brown, the color blocked panels. They're very easy to like take all that information in, I feel. So
thank you.
Appreciate that. I need to make sure that I'm the name Paul John, obviously your last name Paul.
Yes.
How does that relate? What does it mean? Where does it come from? Why decide to say I'm going to put that on the bag?
Yeah. So my dad's name is Paul John. And he named his first business after his dad. And so I wanted to name my first business after my dad. We do also have a Paul John Indian single malt. And so kind of we wanted to, it's the same concept of kind of highlighting India as an origin. It's not something you think of that comes from India, single malt. But I will say I think we have very good single malts as well. And so it was the same concept and the same kind of educational backing that we were trying to do in the Western world of, highlighting India as an origin. And so all of that tied together, I just thought it would be a good idea to kind of have it under that family name of Paul John, and kind of with the same objective of highlighting, India and the products that come from India, I guess.
What comes next? What's the future hold for Paul John Caffeine and for you?
Yeah. Well, you never know, but I would really like to see our bags of coffee more widespread. Our goal is to really get into retail outlets, more mainstream, and kind of highlighting. And like I said, we started the company with the objective of really highlighting Indian origin coffee, and I think that's where I would like to see it more mainstream, kind of have people know that India is not just chai, or tea is also coffee. And I think that's the future goal, is to kind of have maybe Paul John associated with that concept of Indian coffee in the Western world.
You mentioned this earlier, and it just came back to me about your green coffee customers. Yeah. And we're talking about Roastar and how they're working with different company sizes. Do you work with small roasters, big roasters, anywhere in between? Is there a limit?
Yeah.
Someone's listening to this going, I'd really like to try this.
Yeah, no, we work with all different sizes. We have large traders that buy green coffee from us. And then we also have small, individual cafe roasters that will buy small quantities and a certain number of pounds. And we're able to do that, kind of break it up. We're not one of those big traders where you have to buy a certain number of pounds of coffee, or you have to bring in a whole container, or it's nothing. And I'm quite proud of the fact that we bring in a variety of Indian coffee that most people don't have, other green coffee traders. Most people know Monsoon Malabar as a green coffee from India, and maybe a Robusta. But we bring in 6 different varieties on a stagnant, and then we're able to source and bring in, micro lots and various other versions because of the connections that we have in India. And so yeah, we can work with small, big, medium, any size.
Okay, we'll make sure that we've got all these links in the show notes and let people connect with you.
Appreciate that, yeah.
Absolutely. Did I miss anything that you really wanted people to know today?
No, I think we kind of covered it. I kind of love talking about the Indian coffee and the aspect of it, so we covered everything.
Well, and I'm excited that you gave me a new reason, not just the only one, but a new reason to come to India, which is to try that single malt with you.
Oh, yes.
Because I don't think it's...
malt here in the U.S. too. It's available in Total Wines.
Okay. Well, I'll look for it, but I also feel like maybe I need like a business reason to go to India.
Oh, yeah.
I think would be most...
we have a distillery, actually, and you can go try out all the single malts. And so, yeah, if you're definitely a fan of single malt, give it a try.
Well, I am, and that's
wonderful.
Probably what I'll have next. But
Okay.
when you happen to be out and about and you are stopping in a new cafe and they don't have your coffee yet,
yes,
but they probably will at some point. What are you going to order?
Oh, so a lot of people ask me like, what's my go-to? So in a cafe, though, I will get a plain, like if they have a drip, I will get a drip coffee. I like black coffee. No sugar, no milk, one of those kind of things when I'm trying something new. And that's solely because I'm in the coffee industry, to be very honest. I want to taste it. I want to see, all those flavor profiles and be a little nerdy about it. But I really do like a coffee with milk and sugar too. So it really depends on the mood.
I can't tell you, how much I appreciate your time, the consideration to be here, sharing some of this information.
Oh, thank you for having
me. At what is a chaotic time in coffee and in business, generally speaking. To everyone else, that's our show for today. PaulJohnCaffeine.com. You can find their selection of coffees. You can learn more about the story of the company and about Shonali. Thank you for tuning into the show, the Coffee People Podcast. You can find us online at coffeepeoplepodcast.com. You can probably see that I'm reading some of this because it's a new season and I haven't memorized it yet. You can search for it on all your favorite platforms, including YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Thanks to Roastar for supporting us. Check out all their coffee bag options on roastar.com. You can also find the rest of our supporters and our sponsors. We're going to roll that list here at the end of the credits. Don't forget to tip your baristas. Thank you for listening, for watching, and of course, for drinking good coffee. Shonali, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ryan, for having me. I appreciate it.
I hope that was all right. Pretty easy
Yeah,
peasy.
it was.
I was so aware of the lawnmower, and I knew that was going to happen. Just being on like